The Mayo experience.
That Mayo experience. That Mayo experience. That Mayo experience. Experience.
Welcome to another edition of the Dog or Pass podcast. This for UFC 229, the big one. This is the fight everyone's been waiting for. 26-0, Khabib Nurmagomedov puts his lightweight title on the line against Conor McGregor, the biggest draw, the most well-known guy in UFC history. There's beefs against these guys, and they had one hell of a press conference. Before we get to all of that, just want to let you guys know last week's contest winner. We had Hammerman22 got the DK box. I believe the money is probably in your account. If it's not in your account right now, it will be shortly. And for this one, first off, introduce Cody Saftic to the bunch here. What hell of a press conference. Conor said some really nasty things. You know, everyone knows me as a longtime Khabib fan and stuff, and I'm a little bit worried here. Is Conor in Khabib's head? That is what this contest is going to be, is answer that in the comment section. Give the show a like. Answer, is Conor in Khabib's head? You are not eligible for it, but I'll let you take it away with that.
Yeah, I'm not eligible, but if I was to be, I would give my opinion. I would like the show, because of course you've got to like the show and leave the comment in order to get the wins. And obviously you need your DK handle as well, so we know exactly who to send the money to. But yeah, I mean, is he in his head? That's the age-old question. I think every time you talk about a fight, talk about a big fight, especially a guy that speaks a good game, the conversation always shifts to, is he in his head? Is he in his head? But Conor really takes this mental warfare stuff to the next level. If you're not a Conor fan, I think you look at it a lot as he's just throwing words out there. He's just talking smack. It's just simple smack talk. But if you are a Conor fan, or if you're somebody that just kind of follows the sport, or you kind of follow the things that he's saying, and you're involved, he's really digging to the core of Khabib. How could he not be in his head? How could he not be throwing the dolly? Whether that gets in your head or not, I don't know, man. But he's really taking it to the furthest levels. It's a breath of fresh air to have Conor back. Not as someone who considers himself a big Conor fan, but just I love how the promotion really steps up their game. We're seeing sweet promos. We're seeing sweet features. We're seeing an actual build-up. We're seeing an actual storyline. We're seeing an emotional investment by both parties, which just leads to a big party. You're getting super fans that are, you know, Conor McGregor super fans that come out of the woodwork and really support him. And with Khabib, I mean, there's some crazy nuts out there that consider themselves, you know, Khabib fans full on, and you talk to them, you get crazy perspectives.
Who would you say those types of people are?
You know, I don't know, Paul. I think in the 30 seconds it took me to open out that show, some type of change has just happened, and now we have Khabib McShaughnessy.
It's true. First off, this guy grew up in a war-torn country. Yeah. You think a little Irish guy who's sipping whiskey in front of him, saying all this stuff, you think that guy got into his head? Like, he's got nothing on him. Yeah. This screams desperation from Conor. This is the one guy that hasn't really. The last time we saw him against Nate Diaz didn't really respond. He never really gave Conor any sort of respect. And frankly, Conor probably lost 2 fights against Nate Diaz. That second one was really, really close. But I thought Nate Diaz won the first one, or the second one, on top of tapping him out in the first.
You know what, Nate Diaz, just to talk on that point, Nate Diaz makes a comment after the second Conor fight where he talks about, well, I wasn't in shape and I didn't get no sparring rounds getting ready for this fight. That's being in somebody's head, man. That's him going to the well and being like, well, I wasn't ready for this fight, that's why I lost. And now in the lead up to that fight, that's what you're thinking about. You're thinking about the fact that you deep down believe you're not in shape. You deep down believe you didn't get enough sparring rounds in. And you take that into the fight with you. No one knows if Conor's in Khabib's head other than Khabib, because he's the only guy that's in his own head, so he would know or not. But there's no doubt that getting the guy revved up, people always say you don't want to be an emotional fighter. You don't want to go into a fight letting your emotions get the best of you. Jose Aldo, he was pissed off. He had Hakran Diaz yelling at him before the fight started, like, you got to go get this guy. You got to go get this guy. You're representing an entire nation. You've got Brazil on your back. You got to get this guy. You got to make us proud. That you allow that to get to you and you make a dummy mistake. In Khabib's case, if he believes that he's got, you know, all of Russia on his back, if he's got all these supporters, if he's got guys like you that are really putting all their trust, talking so much shit to strangers online that you all need Khabib to back it up, well, then maybe it's just a little bit of pressure. And if there is that extra pressure, then by definition, maybe he's in his head. But I actually tend to agree with you. This guy's Russian. I believe a lot of him getting ready for his combat sports career has been a lot of mental warfare. It's been a lot of, if you lose this fight, we are going to kidnap and kill your family. He's probably dealt with the craziest of situations. And he's Khabib. He's 26-0 for a reason. He's prevailed every situation. He matches up with Conor.
He's won every single round he's ever been. And people will bring up the Gleison Tebow fight as a response. And you know what? The people who are actually trained judges sitting cage side, they didn't see it the way that the MMA media did. So,
yeah, but you're leaving the faith of somebody's undefeated record and someone's career and all this work in the hands of 3 judges, right? And if there's 3 judges that are largely persuaded by the fact that Conor McGregor is Conor McGregor, then maybe he gets these close rounds. I don't think this one's going 5 rounds. I don't think the judges are going to be necessary in this fight. But the thing that's crazy for me about this particular matchup is you've got the best ground specialist, at least at 155 pounds in modern day MMA. You got the best ground specialist in Khabib taking on what is probably the best striker, the best stand-up fighter in Conor McGregor. Even if you don't like the guy, you can't overlook at his accomplishments. He's got victories over 3 former UFC champions, outside of Anderson Silva, who had victories over 5 former UFC champions. He's got the credentials, he's got the skills. So you got the best ground fighter against the best stand-up fighter. The thing is that at this point in 2018, watching as many fights as we all have, you got to favor the ground guy. Ground fighting is what wins fights. Wrestling is what wins world titles. Now, Conor McGregor is an anomaly. This guy goes out there and he knocks out wrestlers. But how many real tough wrestlers has he dealt with in his career? Chad Mendez, 45er.
He took the fight on a twice, came in on a week's notice.
Took it on a week's notice. Look fucking tired getting to the fight, let alone in the actual fight. He was gassed out 2 minutes in. Conor ends up having a rough first round with him, has his way in the second round, puts him out. Sure, but outside of that, like Nate Diaz beat him on the ground, but he wasn't a wrestler. He's got a cool little judo setup, but not a guy that's just going to stick on him. So now you have Khabib, a guy that is going to stick on him. The last 2 years of McGregor's career, he hasn't fought in MMA. It's largely been focusing on boxing. He had this huge fight coming up. He crossed his T's and dotted his I's. He really took that fight seriously. He brought in world-class sparring partners. He put in an actual camp. He focused on boxing. And then afterwards, he took his riches. He went back to Ireland. He has a stable of horses. He has a collection of mink jackets. He has his new whiskey. Apparently, the grains are so golden, you have to wear sunglasses to look at them. The guy's got a life outside of fighting, but Khabib, this is everything to Khabib. He's been in the gym. He's been grinding. The one thing that kind of doesn't upset me, it's just, it sucks as an MMA fan, is I honestly do think both guys could win this fight. I'm going to lean with Khabib. I think if they fought 10 times, Khabib's style is going to win more often than not. I think for the value, and you're looking at $8,400, this guy racks up a lot of points when he wins.
He's
and
the GOAT
if you're favoring him to win, yeah, he's the greatest of all time with GPP plays. He really is. Because
he's got a chin. If he goes 3 rounds, you're probably even happier than if he got an early finish on DraftKings.
That's what I was going to say.
The guy just racks up. That Abel Trujillo fight, I believe, was before DraftKings. He took down Abel Trujillo 21 times in that fight. That would be 95 points just as a base floor, not counting any sort of striking, any sort of anything.
Now, when you look at GPPs, anybody can get that first round finish. You're looking for a proper matchup for the first round finish. But there's a couple fighters out there, Khabib being one of them. Max Holloway, he teeters the line. Joanna Jacek, when she's on, she's one of them. No, I was going to put Tim Elliott when he's got a good matchup.
Sure.
Because these guys, they're so fast. There's so many scrambles. There's so many transitions. There's so much output that you don't want a first round finish. You want a 3-round ravishing. And in this case, you've got 5 rounds to deal with. The only way that Khabib tapers off his expectations or kind of kills his value a little bit is if he goes in there with a similar game plan to the Ally Kinta fight. Is that like, I know I can take you down, so I want to test out my striking. I didn't understand that, but I also looked at it as he realizes at some point he's going to have to stand with guys. So here's a fight that I'm already beating this guy, and if I get into trouble, I'll just take him down. I'm going to test out some things that I usually work on in the
that's
gym
exactly
that
what
I need to use in live actual.
Like, I just banked 2 10-8s in rounds 1 and rounds 2.
And I could probably do that again.
He absolutely mauled him. Like, he's probably just like, I'm going to save this poor boy for saving this fight, stepping in to fight me on on a day's notice.
Yeah.
I think he literally was, he was like, I banked those 2. And then round 3, he goes back to the takedown because he's like, maybe, like he was aware of where he was in the fight. He's like, maybe they didn't give me a 10-8 in those first 2 rounds. They should have, because he dominated like pillar to post in those first 2 rounds. But they didn't actually quite follow through. Like if the judges didn't give him a 10-8 in that spot, then he needs to win round 3 in case they give. He ended up winning every single round, as he always does.
But if they were to fight multiple times, Conor's got a path to victory too, and that's catch this guy. I mean, we all know how good of a counterpuncher he is. We all know how good of a crisp puncher he is, and then he's got a lot of power. He could definitely catch Khabib, because Khabib, when he closes the distance, a little bit reckless. And if you look at two great game plans that Khabib could employ against Conor McGregor, is how he fought Rafael dos Anjos, where he's super reckless, but there's no space. He's just on him at all times. And Michael Johnson, the one fight where you can make an argument that he actually got caught clean. I don't think he was rocked. I don't think he was on rubbery legs, but he got fucking caught clean. It's that moment of you needing to close that distance where it's him usually like faking a level change and trying to barrel into you. He's going to get countered. And if he gets countered by Conor, who's to say he's not going to get knocked out? Because with Conor, we've seen that that's how he wins. He's not maybe the biggest power puncher, but he's so accurate that's the kill shot he lands. So if they were to fight 10 times, if Khabib wins, he's riding Conor like a small little pedal bike and pounding away on this guy and makes him look terrible. And all the Khabib fans say, I told you so. Conor's terrible. Conor sucks. Conor's not on this level. If Conor wins, he's sleeping this guy within a round or two, catching him, intercepting him on his way in. And then all the Conor fans are going to say, man, I told you so. Khabib sucks. But these guys are world class. They're both world class. I just got to favor the ground specialist. I mean, we've seen time and time again, imagine you have no idea who Conor McGregor is. You have no idea who Khabib is. You are brought into a secret location and they tell you, Paul.
Send me location.
Yeah, no, you're in the Kumite, right? Frank Dukes is there. You're in the middle of the forest. God knows what's going on. Some crazy tribal shit. But they tell you, we've got the best ground specialist in the area, and he's taking on the best striker in the area. Without knowing anything, you would favor the ground specialist, because at some point the fight's going to hit the ground, and when it does, he's going to be on top of him. And that's not even factoring that Conor McGregor may potentially have a suspect gas tank, that he needs to knock out Khabib within the first 2 rounds, or he's going to get tired. He got tired teeing off on Nate Diaz. He got tired essentially teeing off on Floyd. Floyd did nothing for the first 6 rounds of that fight.
He is going to get tired.
He
if
always
he
gets
spends
tired.
a round in Khabib's world down on the ground there, he's in trouble.
Of course. And you can bring in Dylan Danielson. You can bring in, former Russian Sambo champions. And you can bring in guys that are hopefully going to get you ready. But none of them are really on this level. And Khabib's team makes a hell of a point when it was rumored Jordan Burroughs is going to help out McGregor, which would have been awesome, which didn't actually happen, is that, dude, you just don't have enough time. Like, what are you realistically going to do? Work out with the guy for 4 weeks and that's going to get you ready for this?
Wrestling bears when he was an 8-year-old.
Yeah, it's
his life.
This is his life. And whereas a lot of guys, maybe you are getting in their head because of the language barrier. I don't even know Khabib understands half this shit that's going on. Oh, dude, what a burn he had on Khabib's manager Ali. Does Khabib even care about that?
That was the one time in the press conference Khabib actually kind of smiled and laughed.
Yeah, that's what I mean. He's just like, oh, this guy's a showman. Khabib's actually had a lot of run-ups with McGregor. There's been a lot of shit talk over the years. Just the fight, nobody ever thought the fight would materialize, largely because they thought Conor wants no part of Khabib. But here Conor is signing on the dotted line, showing up, doing the media, appears to be in shape, and is here to fight. So whether you support either guy, we need Conor. Conor's great for the game. As fans of the sport, we want the sport to grow. We want more people to watch it. We want the athletes to get paid more money. We want more jobs to be opened up on the media side. We want more things to get invested. We want sponsors to come back. That's all great. We need Conor in order to do that. So part of me actually wants Conor to win. However, I am fully picking Khabib. I do think he's going to win this fight, and I like Khabib too, so it doesn't really matter. A fight's a fight, and because I'm going to have money on Khabib, the fact that he's $8,400, I'm going to roster him up in lineups because he's got a high ceiling. And you could play McGregor a little bit, but you're hoping McGregor does something that no one's ever done, which is knock out Khabib cold. And yeah, McGregor is kind of a magic man. He's done crazy things in the past, but that's a lot to...
A lot of that one-punch knockout power was witnessed at 145 pounds too. Let's not forget that.
Fair, but if you look at Conor's resume, right? A win over Poirier, a win over Holloway, slept Jose Aldo, the win over Chad Mendes, the win over Nate Diaz for what it's worth, win over Eddie Alvarez where he made Eddie Alvarez look absolutely out of place.
Eddie never closed the distance or even tried to.
Right, whereas Khabib 4 fights ago is fighting Daryl Horcher. Khabib fights once a year at best. Khabib, oh, what a big over Ally Quinta over a year ago. Like, there's a path. It's a fight, dude. It's a fight, and I'm excited for this one more so than I've been on a lot of the fights in a long time. So glad to be back in a position to break down a big fight for a change and have people's interest.
Final thing I will say is I think Conor will be by far, especially in that $10 100K contest, 100K to first contest on DraftKings.
He's got a high upside.
100% he'll be the highest owned guy.
Yeah, okay, fair.
Just because projections, as the Irish start flooding into to Vegas, we know how these things go. Everyone's going to see 7,800 on Conor, and the value's just going to be there. I will be. I'm wearing a Khabib. For those just listening, I'm wearing a Khabib hat and a Khabib shirt. So we all know where I stand on this.
I guess the audio version people wouldn't have understood.
They wouldn't have understood that I opened the show without it. But it is what it is. That's why you got to watch it on YouTube. Let's move on. I think we've talked about this enough. Let's move on to the stay in the lightweight division. We have Tony Ferguson taking on Anthony Showtime Pettis. Tony Ferguson is 9,300 on DraftKings, and Anthony Pettis is 6,900. One hell. The only saving grace for Anthony Pettis here is that Tony is coming off of like complete reconstructive knee surgery, and it looked nasty. He was posting a lot of pictures on his Instagram that I wish I'd never seen and never can unsee at this point. So that his mobility, his movement, everything like that, you worry that he could be affected to a degree. But otherwise, I really don't see Anthony. I know Anthony Pettis had a nice little comeback fight there in his last time out, and he looked better than he had in years. But Ferguson could arguably be in this main event against Khabib or against Conor, and nobody would bat an eye. I think Anthony is completely outmatched. Pending that knee holds together for Ferguson. Like 9,300 is a high price to pay, but I think it's a complete smash job right here.
Yeah, I kind of feel along the same line. Tony Ferguson was the champion. You know, it's a crazy debacle that you have. Tony Ferguson, well, McGregor relinquishes the title. Ferguson looks like he's the actual champ. Ferguson should fight Khabib. Fight doesn't happen. Khabib fights Al, and now Khabib's the champ. And now Khabib is fighting the returning McGregor, and poor Tony Ferguson sitting on the sideline. But this is a warm-up fight for him. It's a keep busy. You are the #1 contender. Guy, you used to have the title. You're on a lengthy win streak. You're a very exciting fighter. We can market you to a certain extent, especially if you're fighting either Khabib, a guy that you've had a history. You know, they would hate to have to market that again. But at least there's some type of story there. And him versus Conor sells itself. Conor versus anybody pretty much sells itself. Ferguson needs a fight over a big name guy, a fight that is very possible for him to win, and a fight that's very possible for him to look good in. And with Anthony Pettis, you have the former lightweight champion who, hey, looked really good in his last fight. And now he's coming in to take on Tony Ferguson. He's got that reputation. He's got a little bit of quality to him. It should be a fun fight. He's got an exciting style. And Tony Ferguson ultimately would come out victorious. And then Tony Ferguson sets himself in a position to potentially challenge whoever is the victor of this fight, pending some crazy outcome that will require an immediate rematch. But yeah, I think he just matches up with Anthony Pettis perfectly here. Anthony Pettis has largely struggled against two things. The wrestling. I think everybody knows the wrestling and the ground game, which is something that Tony Ferguson most definitely brings to the table. But it's the pressure, dude. It's the staying in your face. Pettis doesn't like that. For as much as he is a counterpuncher, he kind of likes to dictate the action a little bit. He likes to think. He likes to set up these flashy strikes. He doesn't like people on him consistently. When you look at the beginning of his, his little run there, where things went to go south for him, the Rafael dos Anjos fight. Rafael is just in his face at all time and uses the wrestling. Then you look at the Eddie Alvarez fight. Eddie Alvarez is just in his face the entire time and uses the wrestling. But he actually, the third fight he loses in that, the 3 consecutive losses against Edson Barbosa. Edson Barbosa doesn't care to take him down. He just stays in his face. And that backwards pressure, he just beats him with a punch every time, breaks him down slowly over time, and gets the win. I think Ferguson is capable of doing all 3 of those things. He can stay in his face. He can, muscle him to the ground. He's better on the ground. And even if the fight stays standing for a prolonged period of time, Ferguson's dirty with those elbows. Ferguson's dirty in the clinch. Ferguson pushes a higher pace than I think Anthony Pettis is willing to deal with. Yeah. When the going gets real hot for Anthony Pettis, sometimes he kind of backdoors himself. And if you're looking at the fact that it's $9,300, it's a very expensive price tag, but I think I agree with you. I mean, he's basically built here to get the victory. My last thing is, if you're thinking tempted, geez, Pettis looked good his last time out. And another thing is, Ferguson's very hittable, and Michael Chiesa was very hittable. And we're able to see that Anthony Pettis, the counterpuncher, is able to kind of beat a guy that's, he leaves the opening, he's able to capitalize on the opening. The difference there is that Michael Chiesa is slow and hittable. Tony Ferguson's got some agility to him. Mm-hmm. But maybe if the knee is an issue, then he's a little bit slower. But my thing here is that if you're feeling tempted for Anthony Pettis based on the last performance, you really got to think to yourself, this is the fickle thing about MMA. He fought Gilbert Melendez in 2014. He did not look good in the first round. He snagged up that guillotine. Then he lost to Rafael dos Anjos. Didn't look good. Then he lost to Eddie Alvarez. Didn't look good. Then he lost to Edson Barbosa. Looked terrible. Then he beat Charles Oliveira. Did not look good, but snagged up that lucky guillotine. Then he looked terrible against Max Holloway. He looked bad against Jim Miller. He looked terrible against Dustin Poirier. and then he beat Michael Chiesa. That's 1-8. That's one fight that he looked good in over his last 9 contests. We can't just assume that he's back. Now, he seems like he's in a better place. Duke's kind of, behind the fact that he's getting back to fighting. But they've also mentioned the fact that he's getting away from that counter wrestling and getting back to what he does, and that's strike. And that's just probably not a good game plan against a guy like Tony Ferguson, who, if his knee is compromised, he's going to be looking to get this fight to the ground a lot quicker. He's got a nasty Darce choke. He's just a long, rangy guy that's able to drag people down.
But
Pettis has never been submitted.
I don't think he's ever taken on somebody with the offensive grappling. I guess Charles Oliveira, he did.
Right, and he got out-grappled by Charles Oliveira largely in spots. He's beating him standing, and then he was getting dragged to the ground and getting out-grappled. In the third round, he jumps on that guillotine, and I don't see Tony Ferguson getting submitted. So if you go down to an early hole, you're going to have to deal with the fact that Tony Ferguson is getting hotter the longer rounds go. He's a slow starter, whereas Anthony Pettis might kind of dwindle a little bit as the fight progresses. So I got to go Ferguson here. The $9,300, if you can afford him on your roster, I think that he's a bit of a safe play. I think he could get the finish, or because of the kind of trepid pace that he pushes, if it's a 3-round decision, he's still going to get some very solid value for you. So yes, Tony Ferguson would be a guy that you want to have your eye on.
Dominic Reyes takes on Ovince St. Preux in the light heavyweight division. Reyes is 8,900 on DraftKings, and Ovince St. Preux is 7,300. Big step up, I would say, for Dominic Reyes here, but he's passed every single test along the way with flying colors. A lot of times people will be like, oh, he's only fought cans. It's just like he's doing what he's got to do again. He is crushing these cans. He is finishing them off in the first round. He looks pretty well-rounded. He looks like a good athlete. And OSP, the one thing about him is that he has moments every once in a while. He's a Jekyll and Hyde kind of fighter. Sometimes he shows up and it's just like, this guy is definitely a top 10 guy. And then other times he shows up and, the one against Fei Zhao. Like, that is the classic example. Just like,
he's been known to do
what
that,
are you
man.
doing,
Yeah,
man?
he
like,
won that fight too.
You should kill this guy. This is a fight that is set up for you to win. So I'm struggling to not go with Reyes here because I just think Reyes is what we maybe thought OSP could have been with 5-6 years ago when OSP's kind of rising the ranks. He's the prospect with all the potential and everything like that. And I think Reyes is kind of, just I think he's even taller, longer, more powerful, and he's got more tenacity. He's got more of a killer instinct. I think that can get the job done here against OSP. I think he probably gets an early finish. He's a guy. It's going to be a tough card on DraftKings this week. Just trying to figure out which direction you're going because there's a lot of good arguments to be made for a lot of these favorites, but obviously you can't pay up for everybody. But I like Reyes. I like the big chalk here once again. I like Reyes, 8,900. Price isn't even all that bad. You're not even paying up into the 9,000s, and I definitely think this fight gets finished.
Yeah, the saving grace here is that Dominic Reyes, a guy that has been taking guys out in the UFC left, right, and center, generally in the first round, has traditionally been a very nice GPP score, and is $8,900. So he's less than 9,000, and on a card that's largely overshadowed by the big names, like, Conor and Khabib have good value, but they're going to be heavily played. And a guy like Tony Ferguson, former champion, guy that has a big name in the UFC, $9,300, people are going to play him. Dominic Reyes is still just 3 fights into his UFC career, still unbeaten, but still very young, 28 years old, but young into his career. And I honestly do agree with you in the assessment that he's kind of what Ovince St. Preux a couple of years ago. This guy's 6'4". He's a former collegiate football player. He's a great athlete. He's training out of an MMA hotbed in California. I think he's at a Victorville with Joe Stevenson, but all the same, you got great training partners down in Southern California. And he's just getting better every time we see him, getting a little bit better. He generally smokes guys out in the first round. So I think a large question for me is that, well, when he gets taken in the second round, what's going to happen? UFC debut against Joachim Christensen. What's going to happen here? Joachim Christensen going to take him out of the first round? No, it doesn't. Jeremy Kimball. I thought Kimball might be able to. As it turns out, Kimball doesn't get out of the first round. He smokes Jeremy Kimball. The next fight, Jared Cannonier. Yes, the word can is in the name, but Jared Cannonier, not that bad, dude. And he knocks him out in the first round. Yep. A very nice victory for him because Cannonier is a guy that's fought the Glover Teixeiras of the world. He's fought at heavyweight. He seems to have a pretty decent chin on him. And Dominic Reyes is a big guy, especially at light heavyweight. He puts pressure on guys. He seems to have a lot of power, and he's got good strike versatility. He's not just one of those guys that's going out there throwing a 1-2. He's not a guy that just tries to cut you up with a jab. He's got a nasty uppercut. He's got nasty knees inside of the tie clinch. He seems to be one of those guys that, because he's a great athlete, he ties it all very well together. But with Aubin St. Preux is that, yeah, I think Dominic Reyes catches him, probably knocks him out. But when Aubin St. Preux is on, yeah, he's a top 10 guy. Maybe that's too much for Dominic Reyes. Like, if the fight hits the ground, you just end up in a Von Preux choke. There's nothing you can do about it. The last fight with Tyson Pedro, he's rocked. Pedro's got this guy. Nope, fight hits the ground, got Pedro's arm. But the thing is that he's getting caught a little more these days. He's getting rocked a little more these days. You can go back to the fact that he was getting knocked out, earlier on in his career. Whatever, let's throw that aside. You gotta look at the fact that Jimmy Manuwa catches him bad. The Volkan Oezdemir fight, he doesn't pull the trigger. He literally just stands there and allows Volkan to lead the dance for 2 rounds. He comes alive in the 3rd, but he loses the decision. The fight with Ilir Latifi. Latifi's tiny. He stood in front of Latifi, got caught, and then got choked out unconscious.
Yep.
And then the fight with Tyson Pedro. Pedro's actually a ground specialist. He throws heavies, but he's more of a ground specialist, and he catches them too. So the thing with Dominic Reyes is that apparently he's pretty legit on the ground. He trains with good black belts. These guys are invested in him, but it's the fact that these fights are going to stay standing, and as for as long as they stay standing, he really seems to do some damage. And with Aubin St. Preux, he's a big guy, and I think a lot of the fights with Aubin St. Preux, the fact that he's able to dictate the distance a little bit, because he's got long ass arms. He's kind of a gangly guy. He's good at controlling that distance. He's so big, you don't want to rush in on him. But Reyes is going to be able to have success in that department. He also has a freakishly long reach, and I think he's going to put it to good use. I think he catches Aubin St. Preux. I think he knocks out Aubin St. Preux, $8,900. Again, he's going to be less played than the other big plays on the card, and he's got a very high ceiling. But you're dealing with a quality opponent here in Aubin St. Preux that you're banking on him having just an off night. And that makes it a bit of a tricky predicament, but I'm picking Dominic Reyes.
The last thing I will just add on to that is you were talking about, well, we don't know what happens when Reyes goes to the 2nd round because he's been
steamrolling.
They've been lining him up and he's been knocking them down. But yeah. OSP doesn't have the greatest gas tank as it is. We go into round 2 and he doesn't look the same usually most of his fights. So that, like, if it's a high intensity round 1, they get out of round 1. Are we supposed to be convinced that OSP now has the advantage going into round 2? Because I would not go that far.
I know, but would you be even the slightest bit shocked if it's round 2, they are both gassed?
And then it just turns into
OSP, somehow they fall to the ground. OSP ends up on top, and it's Von Preux City, baby. Because that's the move that when you're real tired and you've got this fucking guy on top of you, because let's
I
be
feel
real
safe.
here.
I feel safe down here. Oh God,
He's a big, strong guy, man. He's branded. We used to talk about that back in the day. How tough is this guy? You do not want to mess with him. But he is suspect standing, and that's why I think the path of victory is there for St. Preux. Or sorry, for Dominic Reyes to catch him.
All right, we move to the heavyweight division. We have Alexander Volkov taking on Derek Lewis. Alexander Volkov, 8,700. Derek Lewis, 7,500. What's your take here, Cody?
You know what? For as much as I really do like Derek Lewis, and I think he's a great follow as far as social media and Instagram and all that goes, Derek Lewis is who I think Derek Lewis is. It's just, I don't see improvements from him fight to fight. He is who he is, and guys will take advantage. Now, he's similar to Aubin St. Preux in the sense that when he has a good performance, he could put your lights out. If he ends up on top of you, his ground and pound is ferocious. But more times than not, he's like, you can look back at the Francis Ngannou fight and just be like, oh man, they both didn't do anything. No, that's a typical Derek Lewis fight. We were just shocked that Francis Ngannou didn't do anything, and as a result, neither guy did anything. But that's typical Derek Lewis stuff. He does this through and through against opponents, where he'll just stand there, wait to maybe try to land that one big counter punch. He's not really pushing the pace. He's not throwing combinations. He's waiting to get that one big lunchbox of a right hand, smack it lopside your head, and hopefully put you down. But every time you watch this guy, whether it be the Travis Brown fight, where it looks like he's about to dookie in his pants right there, holding his gut, and then he gets the win. The Marcin Tybura fight, he's gassed. It's 1-1 in my opinion. Maybe he needs a 3rd round stoppage here. He clips him. The Francis Ngannou fight throws no significant strikes, and yet somehow ends up with the victory.
The biggest DraftKings letdown of all time. Because both sides of that fight were just so owned. And I think Derek Lewis got like 27 or like 35 points in a win or something like that.
It was a terrible
literally nothing happened.
And the crazy thing is that you go on Twitter, you talk to people, and people, man, dude, Derek Lewis did nothing. I didn't see that coming. You're like, well, how did you not see that coming? And this is one that got me. Well, man, He didn't do anything because he hurt his back. His fucking back is always hurt. These are things we know about Derek Lewis. He doesn't have a good back, and he's typically not a high output kind of guy. He needs to catch you, and he needs to knock you out. Now, there is a path there of him fighting Volkov. Is that Volkov's a very tall, rangy guy, and where Volkov has generally had problems in his career is guys pin him up against the cage, and they're too strong for him. And Derek Lewis can most definitely do that. He doesn't mind that game of just being up against the cage, trying to out-physical you, be the stronger man, hold you up against the cage, work the body, keep you into tight range, and then try to unload with you with those big punches. If he can get you down, great. It'll probably be near the base of the fence, and it is what it is. He'll try to win around. But I see Volkov dancing around him, using the ring, and just pure punch output. I need him to not have a slow start like he did against Fabricio Verdum, but he was getting taken down against Fabricio Verdum. Whereas I don't think Derek Lewis is going to commit to a takedown. A, because he's not really good with takedowns, and B, because he's got a bad back, which generally causes people to rethink the whole takedown strategy. He realizes, I got a lot of power, and I'm going to try to land that one big shot. But then you become Hector Lombard, waiting on that one big shot, and it happens less frequently as you fight better guys, and as you get older, that kill shot just doesn't land anymore. And that's what Derek Lewis has really become. Yes, if he lands on top of you, he's got ferocious ground and pound, but generally the Guto Inosanchos of the world, or the Juan Potts of the world, they're toppling over. You've got Volkov here who's consistently looked better as fights gone. Derek Lewis has a suspect gas tank. Volkov does not have a suspect gas tank. He gets better as the fight progresses. So maybe Lewis has a good first round. Maybe Lewis is able to control him, largely holding him up against the cage and kind of working in that short distance. But eventually 2 and 3, Lewis is a little slower. He still crosses his feet. He's got no footwork, and Volkov just outworks him. Lewis can take a shot. He can. But he is susceptible to the high kick. Again, something that Volkov does extremely well. Volkov's coming off a finish over Fabricio Verdum, a guy that is more durable than Derek Lewis. It's all there for Volkov, $8,700. You're really banking on hopefully he doesn't do what Francis Ngannou did, but what are the chances that happens twice in a row? Hopefully not. I'm going to take Volkov, the 8,700. Obviously, with Reyes, Volkov, Ferguson, if you want to go Khabib, you're not affording all of them. If you're playing multiple lineups, I just think they all are good plays. Other guys are going to be able to fit depending on who the value picks that you're going to take. And we just haven't really gotten to any value picks yet. If you want Derek Lewis, he's just not going to score big even in a victory. And that's why the price tag at $7,500 is not appealing to me.
Frankly, I don't really want any Volkov, to be perfectly honest.
Well, there you go.
Well, he's going to be throwing out a jab. He's going to be running away. He's going to be playing at a distance. It just sounds like a low-scoring fight. To me, if he wins it, Derek Lewis could be the ultimate multiple lineup GPP punt, where it's just like if he lands one of those heavies, and he does gas for sure, but like his power doesn't go away. We go to the end of round 3 against Roy Nelson way back when, and like that punch knocks out just about anybody not named Roy Nelson.
I'll counter with this though, right? He's a heavyweight, and he's fighting good heavyweights, big guys, and you're gonna run into a potent striker, right? When he fought Matt Mitrione, he gets caught within a minute, walks right into the punch, knocked out.
Yep.
He fights Sean Jordan. Tricky little kick comes up top the head, hits him, he gets knocked out. The Travis Brown fight, if Travis Brown probably wasn't getting the worst advice in the history of the world, he would have put him away there. The Mark Hunt fight, he starts okay in the first couple rounds, then he gets really tired, and he gets hit by Mark Hunt. He's not invincible. He can get finished.
Sure.
He can get knocked out. And it's the tricky guys like Volkov that push a pace, tire you out, and it's the kick you don't see coming. And because he's so damn tall, maybe he can land that shot. So I just feel like Derek Lewis is due for one. He's on a better streak than I actually give him credit for. He's beating guys, no doubt about it. And he's a fun, lovable fighter. But he's due for one. And maybe if Volkov does catch him and he's lowly owned because people stay away from a stinker heavyweight fight, well, then maybe he's going to overproduce for us or whoever plays him and is going to be lowly owned. So we'll have to see.
Felice Herrig takes on Michelle Waterson. Felice Herrig, 8,300 on DraftKings. Michelle Waterson is 7,900. Interesting, closely contested fight, I think, all the way around here. Initial thoughts for me is that Waterson's the lifelong martial artist. She's a better striker. I don't know if she's the better grappler, but she's definitely...
Well, she's black belt, you know.
She's very, very well-rounded, and we've seen when she's taken on other people who kind of picked this up as a hobby along the way, which is a little bit more prevalent in the women's strawweight division. She has really shined in those situations. Paige Van Zandt. I'm not comparing Felice. Felice has really improved. Felice used to be on that level.
She lost to Paige.
She lost to Paige.
And since then,
she has improved significantly.
It is a career turnaround. I'm going to give her 100% respect on that.
100%. I think Michelle Waterson will be a little bit too much for her. A lot of the times, Michelle Waterson, she struggles with size disparity. She's definitely small for the weight class. She should be fighting 105 pounds. She used to be the Invicta 105-pound champion. I think here that size won't be as much of an issue. Felice will have a bit of a size, maybe a little bit of a strength advantage, but I think technique, speed, all of that goes to Michelle Waterson, who I think can win this fight at range, can probably win this fight on the ground. Felice Herrig went toe-to-toe with Courtney Casey Sanchez with their hands. Just like, I think Michelle Waterson's on a whole different level in terms of her striking ability. Okay. I think she wins a close decision, but I've got Michelle Waterson winning probably like a split decision type of thing. Or maybe not even, maybe like a 29-28 across the board. Yeah,
I'm going the other way. I'm going to go with Felice Herrig. I got to give her full credit. She's really turned her career around. She was no good, man. Used to watch her back in the XFO days, back in the Bellator days. She just comes from a kickboxing background. She's a Jeff Curran prodigy, right? She's training in Crystal Lake, Illinois. Good little camp out there, Curran BJJ. Good training partners. But she never really clicked. She never really put it all together. And nowadays is when you really start. She didn't look good in the Ultimate Fighter House. She didn't look particularly good coming out of the Ultimate Fighter House. You know, getting submitted by Ronda Marcos like that, very embarrassing. Coming to the UFC, losing a fight to Paige Van Zandt. You know, not particularly a great start to your career, but she's really kind of found a niche for herself, and she's really getting better as it goes. And I feel like this is a good spot for her. You mentioned the fact that she went toe-to-toe with Courtney Casey Sanchez and didn't look particularly good, but she did win that fight. She did get the split decision victory in there. And you talk about the fact that Michelle Waterson's on a different level than Courtney Casey Sanchez. Well, Michelle Waterson's last fight against Courtney Casey Sanchez, she got fucked up standing, man. She got hit a lot. She got wobbled. In fact, that's a split decision victory for Waterson over Courtney Casey Sanchez. That two judges scored the first round for Waterson, where she got rocked multiple times but threw up a submission attempt inside the last minute. That could have easily gone for Casey. And the problem in that fight is that Casey's too big and physical for Michelle Waterson. I think you nailed it ding, ding, ding with the fact that she gives up size. She's a 105-pounder. But, you know, this is one of those, I'm not a big fan of Michelle Waterson change my mind situations. I just don't really think she's all that good. She is 105 pounds. Let's keep that in mind. Earlier in her career, she starts off her career 2-2. She makes it to Invicta. Her wins are Invicta. Prior to getting Invicta, no big notable victories. But she beats what? Tamada? No big deal. You called this one. Tiburcio, right? Tiburcio is a 105-pounder. And she submits Michelle Waterson.
Yeah, but that's because nobody wanted the 105-pound belt in Invicta because you couldn't sign with the UFC.
Michelle Waterson is she's one of the very few fighters that made her UFC debut coming off of a loss. No less a submission loss. Now she jumps up at 115 pounds. You just lost at 105, but you go to 115. But this is great matchmaking. Her first fight in the UFC is Angela Magana. So she's going to win that, and she does. Her second fight in the UFC is Paige Van Zandt. So she wins. But now it's time to take on an actual fighter, a ranked opponent, someone who is 115 pounds or is a little bit bigger. She fights Rose. She does not look good, but hey, it's the champion. Her next fight against Tisha Torres, she didn't look good, but hey, it's a ranked opponent, Tisha Torres. The next fight is the Courtney Casey fight in which she looked terrible and she squeaked out a split decision. So now she takes on Felice. Well, Felice is just, you know, she's a good-looking girl, but she's not the sexiest opponent to fight because she's gritty, man. She'll present a lot of problems. If the fight stays standing, yeah, Michelle Waterson's a little more polished, but the power's going to Felice, and Felice is a very competent kickboxer. I think she maybe just outworks her ever so slightly. If the fight goes to the ground, Felice is just stronger, right? Do you really want a grappling affair where you got Waterson slightly more technical, but Felice ends up on top and is able to pin her down? Waterson loves throwing up triangles and throwing up arm bars, but is she going to catch Felice if she's off her back? Is she going to win the round if Felice on top of her grinding away at her? I don't know. I don't generally pick Felice. And in fact, and this is for $8,300, I don't want Felice on my DraftKings team, and I don't want Michelle Waterson.
It's likely going to decision.
It's likely going to decision, but whereas you kind of went with you said Waterson probably by split. I think I'm going Felice probably by split. Close fight. I see the merit to both fighters. But I think Herrig's a little bit bigger. And even though she's coming off a split loss to Kowalkiewicz, which should have been unanimous. I don't know how anybody, Chris Lee, hopefully he's judging this fight. I don't know how anybody scored it for her. She's competitive against high-end women, whereas Michelle Waterson, when she fights world-class opponents, size always becomes an issue. When I met Felice Herrig, I'll tell you something. She was a fitness model. She had no fight coming up. She was not in camp. She was with Carla Esparza. Carla Esparza looked like she just rolled off the couch. And Felice Herrig was in phenomenal shape. And that's where she's taken her career to the next level. Why was she not good a couple years ago? She's taken shit seriously, man. She's in phenomenal shape. She has work ethic second to none. She's got good kickboxing skills, good grappling skills, and she's strong and physical. Michelle Waterson, she had a family. She had a daughter. She's got to be mommy, and she's got to go to the gym and get ready for a fight camp, and she's got all these different things in the world. Felice Herrig opted not to do that. She has no notable boyfriend. She's never really had a notable relationship for the most part. She has no kids. This is what she does. She's in there grinding, and that's why we've seen the improvements out of her, whereas Waterson, as I've just detailed, I haven't seen the improvements out of her. She's just kind of always underwhelmed me, I guess. And this is largely a pass, but gun to my head, I have to pick one of the two fighters. I'm going to go with Herrig here.
Speaking to your size disparity claims and everything like that, got a little producer's note while you're talking there from Pat. Said, beat Anissa on the challenge. You know who's a really, really big girl that Michelle Waterson beat? Anissa. Anissa's probably twice the size of Michelle Waterson.
Two things I gotta say there. First of all, what was the challenge?
I don't know off the top of my head.
It was a cage wrestling match.
It was a cage wrestling match.
Second thing is, if I told you you could pick either one of these fighters, one of them, she's in a reality fucking TV house having a cage wrestling match against Anissa and Felice Herrig, dude.
Felice Herrig would also wipe the floor with Anissa. There's
probably more empathy, you know, in a bigger way.
You were gonna
right?
say empathetically.
Yeah, and again, I just totally butchered it, and I was like, oh, I'm just gonna bail out of that one. But all I'm saying is, I'm gonna take the one that's currently committed 100% to her career, and not the one that's 1-2 over her last.
You just hate moms.
No, what?
You just hate moms.
That's a bold
That's why you're
statement.
dancing around. You're dancing around that right now. One girl doesn't care, or doesn't have any boyfriend, any significant other, anything except for a fight
She's
career. And the
committed
other
to
one, the word
cause.
that you haven't said is, the other one is a mom. You just hate moms.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying
Mom hater.
It's a commitment thing.
We got Sugar.
It's a close fight, right? So you need a variable. The variable is they're both very skilled, they're both very talented, they match up well, and one of them has got the X
Sugar
factor.
Sean O'Malley takes on Jose Quinones. Sugar Sean O'Malley is 9,200 on DraftKings. Quinones is 7,000. This one, I'm a little bit surprised by how wide the margin is between the two of them.
Are you though?
I really like O'Malley, and he looks like he's getting better. He's super young, technical. The guy's tough as hell, and he has all of the signs of a guy to watch out for. Quinones has been kind of a tough out for a lot of guys along the way. He's no slouch. I think he should be, you know, this should not be a pick'em or anything like this. But I am a little bit surprised by it. But we always talk about with these young guys, with the Sages and the Jake Matthews. It's just like what you saw 6 months ago. It's just like when you're this early in your career, those 6 months will pass by, and it's just like, holy crap, the amount of wrinkles and skills that they add to their game is astounding. So maybe you know, people making the projections and stuff know they're inside the camp. They see just like, oh my God, this guy's an absolute murderer. I like O'Malley. I'm not gonna steer away from him, and frankly, he is a GPP. He's a GPP dream. The guy pushes a really, really high pace, lands a ton of strikes, lands them from all different types of angles, and he has that first round knockout ability just about every single fight, at least at this level. I like O'Malley, but I was a little bit surprised by how wide it was. That's it.
Yeah, you know what? Because it's so wide is partly one of the reasons I'm going to go with Jose Quinones, and I do think that there's some actual legitimate merit to Jose Quinones. But whenever you get these guys, they're young, they're popular, they got a cool style, they always get the big odds, man. And then eventually they have that come back to reality moment, right? Sage Northcutt used to just get massive odds. He's a 450 over Brian Barberena. But what happens is you lose to Brian Barberena because it's a stiff test, a test that that young kid just wasn't quite ready for. But it's an overestimation. Nobody ever like eases them in and be like, ooh, this is a little tougher, smaller odds. Ooh, this is a little tougher, you know, less value. It's generally speaking.
Misha Shirkinov was the same thing. It's just like he was just
because you're breaking a guy's jaw.
Steamed until all of a sudden it's just like, okay, he's pretty one-dimensional.
And that's the thing with Sean O'Malley is that you watch him on Dana White's Contender Series. It's like, man, this guy's super exciting, but it's not a picture-perfect performance against Alfred Kazakian. Like, he gets hit. He doesn't look fantastic by no means. He comes to the UFC and he gets some momentum, and, you know, he's a tricky guy. But the Tyrion Ware fight, I didn't think he looked particularly great. He's down the second round. He wins the first, loses the second. The third round's a gut-check performance, and he pulls through and he gets the win. But Tyrion Ware kind of froze up there. The next fight of his against Andre Sukumatath, man, that's bad ring IQ. That's as bad as it gets at ring IQ. His leg's busted. You literally just need to stand up and back away from him, and he's going to lose this third round TKO here. And you have no ability to do that. Yeah, Sukumatath batted terribly.
But now, in fairness, O'Malley was torching him.
He was torching him, and that's what's
he looked impressive in that fight until he had messed his leg up.
And see, and that's what's got me weary about picking against him here against Quinones, because the pass there for beating Quinones. If we want to look at recent opponents that kind of give you a good idea of what this fight might shape up to end up looking at, is that Quinones' last fight against Teruto Ishihara. Ishihara, in many ways, has some Sean O'Malley to him, right? He's a long guy. He's a rangy guy. He's got a nasty straight left. He's got big power. And we've yet to see him really be able to keep up that big power and that flashiness through 2 and 3. Is Sean O'Malley better than Teruto Ishihara? Probably. But you know who's a guy who used to have huge odds and everybody used to love before he got exposed? Young old Teruto Ishihara. People loved him, but eventually you run into a problem. You can't figure out that problem. At first it was, oh shit, this guy can't actually deal with leg kicks. Artem Lobov just kicked his leg off and beat him. And then they realized, oh, this guy can't wrestle either. Graham Andrews took him down and held him down. With Sean O'Malley, we haven't really had those moments yet. But it's entirely possible that he goes out here against Quinones, a guy that loves to kick, gets out kicked, gets outworked, loses this fight, and then matches up with the wrestler his next time out, loses that fight, and then he'd be just like Teruto Ishihara. He'd be here was a flashy guy with his bitches and his gold chain and his sunglasses who talked a lot of smack and had a couple of nice highlight victories, but then lost because the going got tough. Is Sean O'Malley going to be like that? I don't know. It remains to be seen. Well, he's at the MMA lab. They work hard. Ishihara was at Team Alpha Male. There are two gyms that have big names, that could have reputations, that you give these guys the benefit of the doubt, but you can't overlook Quinones because he's a solid guy. He's a tough out. I think he's 8-1 in his career. Only lost in the finals of the Ultimate Fighter against Alejandro Perez. Sorry, he lost a fight earlier in his career.
Sure.
I gotta get the name. No, because it's a guy that's kicking ass right now at 155 pounds. Yeah, he lost to Davi Ramos by TKO back in the day. Davi Ramos is kicking ass at lightweight and is a former BJJ world champion. And then he's on a 4-fight winning streak. He pushes a pace man. His fight with Joey Gomez. Joey Gomez is not a world beater. Joey Gomez is a decent regional scene guy. He puts a fucking pace on him, man. He breaks him down. His next fight against Diego Rivas, Rivas is no good. But again, he's outstriking these guys. The fight with Ishihara, he also had a gut check because he wins the first round. He probably loses the second round. And in the third round, it's 1-1. You got to turn it up. He's losing the first part of the third round, but he turns it up. He has good kick game, like high output. Maybe that slows down O'Malley. If O'Malley, who just had this busted leg, is not fully healed, or maybe his leg's going to be an issue, tall, skinny guy, you work a good leg kick game, generally slows them down. O'Malley, he's based on speed, he's based on footwork. What's going to happen if he gets his leg kicked off and he's a standing opponent? And Quinones is a guy that trains at the Alliance MMA, trains with guys like Dominic Cruz. He knows a thing or two about tricky styles. Maybe he's the bread and butter style that breaks that guy down. So for the $7,000, because I like a lot of expensive plays on this, I got to take a shot on somebody. And whereas I don't necessarily think he finishes Sean O'Malley, if he just goes out there and gets me the decision, and Sean O'Malley's hittable, he can land 60, 70, 80 significant strikes, then he's going to be worth it for the $7,000 price tag. So
yeah,
as far as guys that are
if Quinones wins, this is probably going to be a high volume fight. Like, this is the type of fight you would want.
The one thing I'll admit, because I don't want to end up looking like an idiot here, is that Quinones did get dropped at the end of the second round by Teruto Ishihara on a straight left. And he also somewhat got wobbled by a knee in the clinch at the end of the first round. O'Malley's accurate. He's got power. He's got good timing. If Quinones goes and gets slept in the first round, everyone's going to look at the fact that, dude, this guy sucks. It was such a bad call.
He got Saftic.
Yeah, big time, big time. I'm just really hoping that he's one of those guys that can prove a fighter's deficiencies by taking him a little bit later and showing something. So, got to go with Quinones.
We got Sergio Pettis taking on Jussier Formiga. Sergio Pettis is 8,600. Formiga 7,600. Pretty straightforward kind of stylistically, I think here. Pettis probably the better striker, a young guy
Definitely.
who's kind of grown up in front of our eyes, and over the years he's gotten better and better. Now he's like number 2 ranked guy in this division. Like,
I don't see it, but it's a soft division. And AB Benavidez, who's perennially number 2.
Formiga just finds ways to get to people's backs.
Yeah, and then
when
it becomes a problem.
And when he does, it is an absolute problem. And his striking ain't too shabby these days either. He's getting much better. Very, very tough fight to call, to be perfectly honest. I will ever so slightly lean towards Sergio Pettis, just in terms of that career trajectory. He's been getting better, and he's young, and I'm sure his brother's putting in a big camp. Everyone's putting in a big camp there leading into this one, but I think Formiga is my preferred DraftKings play at 7,600. Worst case scenario, we'd probably get 3 rounds out of this. I don't see him knocking out Formiga. Formiga's been in there with everybody. And maybe if he gets outstruck for 3 rounds, he doesn't score all that much. But at least you're getting 3 rounds. Maybe you get 15, 20 points out of him. And he's a threat at any time to grab that back, grab that neck, and close the show. So Formiga's actually my preferred play on DraftKings. Pettis, if all things were even, I guess I would pick Pettis, but Formiga would be my DraftKings play out of the 2 if I had to.
Yeah, no, I'm actually going to agree with you there. Looking for Formiga, $7,600. Yeah, dude, if this guy finds the back, he's going to get you that value. He's going to get you that money's worth. He matches up good against Sergio Pettis. The thing for me is this is quintessential dogger pass for myself personally, because you've got Sergio Pettis that is inconsistent, man. He's not the most trustworthy of guys. If he shows up and he's on, he gets the victory. If he shows up and he's a little off, not so great. His fight with Brendan Moreno, where people start to really realize, hey, this guy's not as bad as we thought. He does lose the first round to Moreno before, taking advantage of the fact that I have an opponent even younger than me. His next fight against Joseph Benavidez, that's why he's being valued here at $8,600. That's why people have got a little bit of hype here for Sergio Pettis. He just knocked off the number 2 guy in the world. He knocked off a guy that was, if not for Demetrius Johnson, the 125-pound king, right? He just knocks him off. But you know what? There's a lot that goes into that fight. First of all, Joseph Benavidez on the sideline for a while. Second of all, he had a massive knee surgery. He's a guy that people were relying that he would take down Sergio Pettis in order to beat him. There's no doubt Sergio's a great striker. He's grown up right in front of our eyes. And where have we seen him excel? In the striking department. Just similar to his big brother, Anthony. But we know how to beat the Pettis brothers. Not you or me know how to beat them. Top echelon MMA talent knows how to beat these guys. The blueprint's out on them. Joseph Benavidez needed to use his wrestling in order to beat him. But because of the knee surgery, he just didn't have that explosiveness. He was not nearly as fast as he used to be. And he probably had a lot of ring rust that he was working off. And he still managed to lose a split decision. It was a close competitive fight. Whereas if Formiga goes for it, man. There is no, man, I don't want to tire myself getting these takedowns. It's, I'll just tire myself getting these takedowns out. And worst case scenario, I gas out and I hold on. He beat Ray Borg in the first round. He was looking slick against Borg, but he tired out, and Borg pushes a high pace and is a good counter grappler, and that tires him out. But with Ulka Sasaki and Ben Nguyen, no, you guys ain't gonna out-grapple me, and he finds a way to choke them out. Ben Nguyen is a very competent grappler. You see some of his big wins, it's like, damn, brown belt in BJJ, but brown belt in BJJ versus UCR Formiga, high-level black belt in BJJ, it ain't gonna happen, and he makes a mockery of him. Justin Ortiz, scramble master, wins the 3rd round against Formiga, but he's down the first 2 because you can't scramble against Formiga. The second you give that opening to have your back taken, your back gets taken. So yeah, Sergio can outstrike him. The fight stays standing, Sergio either just beats him, probably just outpoints him. I don't think he knocks him out either. I think he just outpoints him standing. If the fight hits the ground, you got to go with Formiga all day. But you know Formiga's going to go for it. You know Formiga's going to attempt to take him down and attempt to choke him out. He's submitted his last 2 opponents. He's, getting a little older, but as we see with these Ronnie Yaya types, it's like, dude, they're so good in BJJ. If they get older, as long as the fight continues to hit the ground, they'll find that path to victory. And geez, man, for $7,600, if he is to submit Sergio Pettis, we'll take it. If he's not to submit Sergio Pettis, the problem is he probably backpacks him, he puts a body triangle on him. There's no transitional points there. There's not much. It's mostly him just riding Sergio Pettis for 2 rounds. But if he ends up with a decision victory and only scores you 50, maybe 60 points, you don't love it, but he's only $7,600.
But it doesn't kill you.
So it does not kill you.
Yeah.
And you can afford some of these bigger options that hopefully make up some of those points for you.
When we speak about some of those bigger options, we have what appears to be the biggest squash match on the card. We have Vicente Luque taking on Dana White Contender Series, Jalen Turner. Luque is 9,400. Turner's 6,800. You look through Jalen Turner's record, and frankly, he has not fought anywhere remotely close to this level before. Maybe I'm missing something here, but it just looks like a complete smash for Vicente Luque here.
Yeah, you know what though? What was the biggest smash on 2 weeks ago? The biggest smash would have presumably been Renan Barão versus Andre Ewell, but it doesn't happen that way because Andre Ewell, unknown guy, actually an athlete,
Was
fast.
that the biggest smash, though?
Well, no,
That
it wasn't, especially when you look at the value, 100%, I agree with you, but when you look at someone that people were firmly backing, Renan Barão, people didn't say Renan Barão's back. People didn't say Renan Barão's going to smoke this guy out, but Renan Barão was viewed as a safe play. Renan Barão is not so shot that it allows to Andre Ewell, but he's all the way shot.
Sure, but
So what you get here is you get Vicente Luque.
Luque's not.
No.
Luque's not.
That's what I'm getting
up.
at. That's what I'm getting at. He's only 26.
Yeah.
He appears to have taken some damage in his career, no doubt about it, but he's still only 26. So there's no reason to believe that damage has really taken long-term effect. And the fact is, he looks fantastic over his last couple fights. Absolutely destroyed Chad Laprise, who's, a tough out for people. Nico Price is who he is, but this is how you deal with guys like Nico Price. You absolutely smash them. 4 fights ago, Belal Muhammad, what a role he's on right now. Took Belal Muhammad out. Now you're taking on an opponent that's not even in the same category.
Those guys. No.
Jalen Turner is not on the same level. Do you want to know a crazy stat? Jalen Turner began training MMA in 2013, just out of high school, never wrestled. He said he boxed a little bit, but started training in 2013 because
his weight?
No, he figured he'd be good at it.
Oh.
Okay? In 2012, 1 year before Jalen ever started training MMA, 1 year before Jalen ever even got out of high school, Vicente Luque knocked out Thiago Santos in a Brazilian regional. This guy has been around.
Yep.
He's got big wins in the UFC. He's only 26 years old. He's been fighting professionally for 7 or 8 years.
Trains with some of the best guys in the world.
Trains with some of the absolute best guys in the world. And this is no knock on Jalen Turner. It's just, geez, what a hell of a bad opponent to draw for your UFC debut. This screams short notice replacement, but he's not a short notice replacement.
It's very, very strange.
It's very strange. The only thing I can think of is Luque looks good right now. Luque's young. Luque's good looking.
Put him on the McGregor card.
We're going to put him on the McGregor card.
Bit of shine.
And we're going to give him a little shot on the arm. I think you mentioned it. It looks like the biggest squash on the card. And generally, as a matchmaker, right? When you matchmake a fight, when you put Khabib and Conor together, in your mind, you're thinking, oh, dude, Khabib can win this fight. And Conor can win this fight too. When you put Ferguson and Pettis, like, hey, what if Ferguson's knee is a little hurt? Maybe Pettis is a great counterpuncher. Maybe he catches him. We've seen Ferguson get beat up by Lando Venata at times. Maybe that runs through. When you make this fight, you think, fuck, one guy's getting his ass kicked here. And you're putting the fight together. So why would you do that? Because there's a preferred outcome coming out of this. If Turner ends up beating this guy, well, great. He'll take a little bit of the shine and we'll promote him. Sucks for us, but it's not the end of the world. But you want Vicente Luque to go out there and choke this guy out in the first or second round or score a nice big knockout to get people excited, leading them into the pay-per-view portion of the card where you want them to buy it, right? So, yeah, I think Luque is a safe play, and I think at Luque at $9,400, because he's a little bit less of a name than a guy like Tony Ferguson, maybe he's going to be a lower ownership guy.
Could.
But $9,400 is expensive. He's probably a chalk play, and maybe for that reason you avoid him.
Ownership in MMA is just, it's really, really hard to figure out what direction people are going in.
It's just how you can roster. At the end of the day, you have $9,300 or you have $9,200. So you can afford one guy, you can afford the other guy.
What's most predictive is like line value and stuff. When that stuff comes in, you can you can figure it out, but like for these top guys, Luque to Ferguson to Khabib, it's just like all in that. It's really hard to say how these fighters will be owned in contests, to be perfectly honest, or at least I have found it, and I haven't found anybody out there who has become a master of knowing the exact percentages, to be perfectly honest. Anyway, we got to move on. We got Aspen Ladd taking on Tanya Evinger. Aspen Ladd, your baby.
My baby.
Taking on the hardest fight probably of her career.
Oh, I'd say so.
100%. Taking on former Invicta champion, super, super tough, gritty competitor in Tanya Evinger. So it's 8,200 Ladd. 8,000 Evinger. I'm interested to hear your take on this one.
Yeah, you know what? Perfectly honest, very close competitive fight. I think value's pretty much spot on, 8,200, 8,000. Evinger is very difficult to put away. I mean, the fact is, Cyborg literally teed off on this girl, and she took it for a prolonged period of time, which is something that very, very few people have shown the ability to do.
She looked the best against Cyborg up until Holly Holm, really.
Yeah, because Holly Holm had a different style. The thing with Evinger is the style is grind him. If you can't find him, grind him. And that's a very tough style to have against, against Cyborg. Whereas Holly Holm was at least, I'll just try to out-finesse her. Tough style too. Had a little more success. But Evinger's as tough as they come, man. Evinger has been fighting for a long time. You talk about Formiga having fought since 2005. You know, Vicente Luque having fought early, you know, long time ago. God, these guys have built up, you know, MMA years, mileage. Tonya Evinger has been around. She fought Gina Carano back in like 2007 in the Elite XC days. She appeared to be done. She tried out for the Ultimate Fighter as a last hurrah. Raquel Pennington beats her. She never gets on that season. She signs with Invicta. Biggity bam! She's back. She's strong. She's physical. And
she's relentless.
Relentless. And no disrespect to anybody, but this is something you and I often talk about, is that like maybe 135 pounds. Women 115 pounds, 125, 135. It's not super advanced yet. It's not super developed. So these tough grinders, these wrestlers, they're going to have a lot of success because they're generally fighting karate practitioners. They're generally fighting stand-up fighters, people who might have a Muay Thai background or a kickboxing background or a Taekwondo background. But you've got a wrestling background. Very few of them do. So Miesha Tate and Sarah McMahon and Tonya Evinger, whether they make it to world title challengers status, they all did, by the way. And in Tate's case, she actually won a title. They have success against mid-level opposition. And I honestly do feel like Tonya Evinger had some legitimate success. But now, 36 years old, yeah, she's only just coming off the loss to Cyborg. Yeah, she hasn't fought since then. I have to assume she's not shot by no means. She's got big wins. She's fought, you know, good ranked opponents in the past and looked good. She basically shut Sean Shelby up when he said, we don't want you, you're not a finisher. She goes on a roll of finishes. She's as tough as they come. But I got to look at this as passing of the torch because I don't want to say Aspen Ladd's going to lose this fight. Ladd has trouble against grapplers. Her only loss to date, she's undefeated in pro, but she does have a loss as an amateur to Cynthia Calvillo. Cynthia Calvillo just took her down and controlled her. Cynthia Calvillo is 115 pounds. And Aspen Ladd struggles to make 135 pounds. So she comes from a striking background. She's a striker. Evinger's a big, strong girl. Evinger is back at 135, but that last fight against Cyborg, she moved up to 145. Didn't look terribly out of place. If she grinds on Ladd and she tires Ladd out, and Ladd always has a bad weight cut, but you've seen pictures of her recently, woof! She looks in fantastic shape. So maybe she'll have a better weight cut.
Woof.
Holy shit, man. People have been like, is this photoshopped? Like, she's jacked. She's unbelievably deezed.
So she's going to miss weight again.
Potentially, I don't know. But she used to fight at 125. She couldn't make the weight there either, and then she moved up to 135. She struggles there. She's only 23 years old, and she's got an ass on her like, damn! So it's going to be tough to make weight. But I think she makes weight here. I think that she's just going to be a little fresher than Tonya Evinger. Evinger, if she's not going to get you down, she's plodding, right? She doesn't got great footwork. She's not a great athlete. She's, you know, the Tara LaRosa types. She's, why am I drawing a blank here? Who's the wrestler now? Not Ronda Rousey. Who's her girl? Shayna Baszler. She's the Shayna Baszler type. She's the Tara LaRosa type. She's from that old guard that has had success. But like a Roxanne Modafferi or a Barb Honchak or a Jessica Aguilar, your time eventually... we see how, you know, regular you are when you take on that next generation, because the next generation is always going to succeed. You know, they're always going to take over from the prior generation. And in Evinger's case, I don't think she's shot. I just feel like Aspen Ladd's just going to outwork her ever so slightly.
Faster.
She's faster. She's a better striker, and it's hard to take her down because of that ace. I'm kidding, but seriously, it is hard to take her down. And if you're not taking her down and you're able to just, you're not tiring her out, she's going to outwork you. Her last fight, early stoppage, sure, whatever, it is what it is, but she's making those weird ass tennis noises, like she's on top and she's just like she's pounding away. Doesn't look like she's going anywhere. She's not tiring out. She's literally blasting her until the referees was like, I can't take this anymore. And the second round would have been the exact same. The third round would be the exact same. She didn't look like she was going to tire. So as long as she doesn't tire against Evinger and keep the fight standing, she just outworks her. I'm just not huge on the $8,200 if I'm not going to get any type of
gonna be a close
substantial finish. Close fight. She could lose. I see pass for Tonya Evinger. I gotta avoid it. But I am gonna support my baby one more time, Aspen Ladd.
We'll stay on the topic of Chris Cyborg's lunch meat. We got Kunitskaya taking on Landsberg. Both have taken on Chris Cyborg, and both have failed very miserably, much more miserably than Tanya Evinger, if we're being completely honest. Kunitskaya is 8,500. Landsberg is 7,700. I think Kunitskaya will be the better athlete. Will be able to kind of fight like Lucy Pudilova did against Landsberg. I don't know if she has the same heart and drive that Pudilova does. I will say that I did watch a video with Kunitskaya, who's training out of the Performance Institute for this fight, and girl looks like she's working hard. She's in great shape. Coaches, obviously, all these videos are obviously set up.
Sure. She's
got such a great work ethic. So I understand, the trainers are going to pump her tires and stuff. But she did look like she was very focused. She's in there every single day, they were saying, so on and so forth. Landsberg, she's the elbow queen. She's going to want to kind of come in, close that distance, hold the fight up against the cage, and kind of deliver elbows. Doesn't really have great takedowns or anything like that. And Kunitskaya is more of like your typical boxer. He's going to want to maintain range. He's going to have probably I don't know the numbers on it off the top of my head, but I imagine she probably has a length and reach advantage. She's got long legs. Probably be able to use some teeps and kicks to kind of maintain distance. Not a fight that I think scores very high. I think this is a fight that even if you're making lots of lineups, you can avoid this fight altogether. I don't see the winner of this fight scoring much more than like 60, 70 points maybe at the tops, and 8,500. That's just a little bit too pricey for Yana Kunitskaya when you see the other people in that range. When you can get Khabib for $100 cheaper. I imagine Kunitskaya is going to be one of the lowest owned people on the card, and Landsberg, I just really don't think she's really anything special. I don't see any. She'll be in these types of fights. She'll be competitive in these types of fights, but you're never gonna feel great about it. I don't think she's winning anybody at GPP. If she does, then I'm not winning the GPP because I won't have really any of this fight.
Yeah, you know what? Truth be told, if this was flipped value with that last fight, Aspen Ladd, Tanya Evinger, I would roster Kunitskaya for $8,200. I just don't know that I like it for $8,500. Lena Landsberg has got glaring issues in her game. Mind you, I just don't really think she's cut for this level. 36 years old. We know she's not going to get any better. We've seen from her 4-fight UFC stint, she appears to make no marginal improvements between fight to fight. She got brought in literally as Cyborg needs a very first opponent. She's going to blast somebody, and then we're going to try to build this division. She was just, unfortunately, that first girl had to come in. Wasn't really a 45er, but hey, she's the elbow princess, and she's got Muay Thai background, and maybe she's going to have a fun striking battle with Cyborg. Managed to get out of the first round, but all the same, looks out of place, loses. Right after that fight, the Lucy Pudilova fight, Pudilova was coming on a relatively short notice, was very young, was very green, was very inexperienced, was a heavy, not somebody that people were really favoring in that fight, and she just outworks her, man. Like, Lena Landsberg's face was mangled in that fight. I was completely swollen shut. She was relying heavily on the fact that she could lean up on Pudilova, try to take her down, try to grind her, try to win rounds. That's the only thing that saved her, but she did not look good. Her next fight against Aspen Ladd just took her down and thrashed her. Made her look way out of place, thrashed her. Against Gina Mazzani, she didn't look good, but she was able to just lean on Gina Mazzani, right? That's her style. She's actually strong in the clinch. You'll often see that times with, credible Muay Thai fighters, is that they spend so much time in the clinch, throwing knees, throwing elbows, that they're physically strong. She clinches up with you, she's going to be strong. She can pin you up against the cage. She can try to just work the outside thigh, the inside thigh with knees, try to get you to the body. Just try to grind out a pace and win a round. But that's not, you would not want her even for $7,700. I just don't think she particularly scores big. But with Kunitskaya not only is at the UFC Performance Institute now, but she also spent some time at Greg Jackson's prior, especially when she was getting ready to fight Cyborg. Hey, why not work with Holly Holm? Holly Holm praised this girl. And this girl's actually sneaky good on the ground. Like, she's a good striker, but she's actually kind of sneaky good on the ground. And the thing with Lena Landsberg is that she's 2-2 in the UFC. Both of her losses, she got finished by ground and pound on the ground. Yeah, one of them Cyborg, but one of them was also Aspen Ladd, 22 years old, not really known as a ground fighter anyways. If Yana Kunitskaya, if the thing here is, they're both strikers, they're going to win, if she just flips the page and takes her down, she's going to finish her. And for $8,500, I don't love it because I really need that finish. But if it was cheaper, I'd be on it. But the pick is KUNITSKAYA to get the win.
Alan Patrick takes on Scott Hot Sauce Holtzman. Alan Patrick 9,100, Holtzman 7,100. Who do you like here?
Yeah, you know what? I don't really understand the value. I think both guys somewhat match up kind of well. Alan Patrick, the guy's a freak athlete, man. Like, he's extremely explosive. He's very fast. He's kind of be like one of those guys that's a good wrestler. But for as talented as he is, we just don't see much of him. Like, you got to look at the fact that loses to Taysumov, no big deal. And then he beats, I believe, Damian Brown. It's Damian Brown. You don't really get much off that. Beats Stevie Ray, but nobody cares. That's 2 years ago. Beats Damir Handzovic. It's Damir Handzovic. These are all like fights once a year.
Now he's fighting Scott Holtzman, though. Scott Holtzman's on that same level as these other guys that you're talking about.
And that's why I think when you look at Alan Patrick, it's like, oh man, you know, Scott Holtzman's along the same level. The two issues that I have here is that one with Alan Patrick, he's not really a finisher. Like, he's taking these guys, he's controlling them on the ground. But for $9,100, I need a finish, or I need a lot of takedowns. With Holtzman, if he gets taken down, I don't know that he's so good that he's just going to keep getting back up and get taken down. The other thing too is, Holtzman's a bit of a wrestler as well.
Holtzman usually goes to the wrestling to maintain control because he's super, super strong, right?
Yeah, but that's the reason I'm going to go against him here. Is because with Holtzman, and I do like Holtzman, right? Former Nashville hockey player, you know, good athlete, likable guy. But that's what he tries to do to guys.
To get himself out of trouble is he goes to that takedown.
Exactly. He goes to the takedown.
That may not be here.
And he tries to grind on guys. Now, the fights that he goes in there and the guys are slightly better wrestlers or slightly better grapplers than him, he loses that fight. He got out-grappled by Drew Dober, who's a sneaky okay grappler, but he got out grappled and taken down by Drew Dober. That's an issue. And then his other loss in the UFC is Josh Emmett, a guy that was a superior wrestler and a better grappler, a little more athletic, probably better standing. Just beat Holtzman is an MMA lab prototypical fighter. He's tough, he's grindy, and if you are a mid or low level talent, he beats you. These upper level talents, they're going to beat him. The thing with Alan Patrick is that he's faster, he's probably a little bit stronger, and he's probably a better wrestler. The thing is that this fight screams potentially greasy fight, could be a boring fight, could be low scoring fight. And $9,100 is a hell of a price tag to take on Alan Patrick. Keep in mind that being out of the MMA lab, you don't necessarily have guys that are as fast and athletic as Patrick, because dude, the guy is a freak. I mean, standing backflip all day. But you deal with guys that are grindy wrestlers.
He's a former Jacare protege.
Well, he's out of the X gym, but what is that really? He does not fight with Jacare. He does not fight like Jacare in the slightest bit. It's just the guy explodes, gets in on your hips, and tosses you. Like I said, he's very. He doesn't. How do you think he's underrated? He fights nobody, and he doesn't particularly excel against them either. He looks solid. No. You can make the same argument.
Read his record to me.
Okay, Alan Patrick's record, right from the beginning of the UFC.
Last 3 fights.
Okay, we'll go his last 5 fights. He robs John McDessie, and then gets knocked out by Taysumov, and then beats Damian Brown, Stevie Ray, and Damir Handzovic. Now, Damian Brown has been cut from the UFC, and Stevie Ray's been cut from the UFC, and Damir Handzovic's cut territory. And at least Holtzman's on a 2-fight winning streak. He also fights low-level guys, but I mean, he's getting the victory against low-level guys. Alan Patrick is a step up for him, because I mean, yeah, you beat Daryl Horcher and Michael McBride. Again, 2 guys, cut territory. Alan Patrick, he's fun, he's exciting, he's on a 3-fight winning streak. He deserves to be here. Generally, when Holtzman gets to step-ups against guys that are better grapplers than him, he's got no plan B. And that's why I think Patrick wins it. I just don't like the price tag. So it's a pass for me at the 9,100. And with Holtzman at 7,100, if he wins, he ain't finishing. He's not scoring big. It's risky. But you could save some money by taking him.
You got to make your picks somewhere along here, too.
Yeah,
right?
no, he's not the worst pick of the
If you like Ferguson and you like LUQUE and you like Dominic Reyes, it's just like some of these other guys in this range have to get eliminated, right? And I think maybe Nick Lentz, who takes on Gray Maynard, may fit the bill of somebody to fade around the top of the board as well. Nick Lentz is $9,000. Gray Maynard is 7,200. Gray Maynard, the book's out on it. It's just like he doesn't really have much of a chin anymore. We've seen him compromised in fights that you would think that he wasn't going to be compromised. The guy's been through a lot of wars.
Brutal.
And he just can't take the damage that he used to be able to. Now, that doesn't actually come through every single time. And I think that this is the type of stylistic matchup where Lentz isn't exactly a heavy hitter. That doesn't mean he can't knock out Gray Maynard in the first round, because it doesn't take all that much. But I could see this being a lot more of a greasy kind of, maybe a grapple fest even. Actually, probably not. I don't know if Nick Lentz has taken down Gray Maynard, and it'll be interesting to see how this one plays out. But I don't know if Nick Lentz has that shutout knockout power that is going to really compromise Gray Maynard. So at $9,000, it is very, very difficult to justify paying up for Nick Lentz in this spot, I think.
Yeah, I'm actually going to go with Nick Lentz in this spot.
I'm picking him as well. I'm just saying, am I paying up for $9,000?
Yeah, the 9,000 is not sexy, but it could be anybody with a wrestling background against Gray Maynard, and you would be able to find some value there because you just got to keep the fight standing, and therefore it's going to have to be a striking battle, and if it's a striking battle, then you just got to hit this guy and knock him out. I agree with you. You know, I think there's a difference between saying, oh man, you know, Gray Maynard's getting caught by Frankie Edgar and getting knocked out, and then eventually it's like, oh well, dude, you know, it's Nate Diaz and he's getting knocked out. And then eventually it's like, right, it was like, you know, Ross Pearson's like a decent striker, but it's Fernando Bruno didn't knock him out. He did beat Fernando Bruno, but rocked him. Guy had never knocked out an opponent in his entire career. Was given to Gray Maynard based on the fact that he did not have any power. And he's seriously rocking him, he's hurting him. But Gray's able to rely on his wrestling. His last fight against Trudeau Ishihara. Ishihara's a better striker than him. Everyone's thinking, you know what, he's just going to hit him at some point, knock him out. But he's a better wrestler than Ishihara. There is no distance. There's no threat of potentially getting hit whatsoever. He just out-wrestles him. But he's not going to be able to out-wrestle Nick Lentz. Him at his best, Gray Maynard at his prime, takes down prime Nick Lentz. Gray Maynard at his prime is a heavier hitter, can take the punches, beats him standing, beats him on the ground all day.
But we're a long ways from that at this point.
We're a freaking long ways away from that. Gray Maynard is obviously in somebody's good books in the UFC because he just shouldn't be there anymore. He's a hazard to his own health. He's not a good look. He doesn't really fight exciting anymore, even if he's going to get the win. His fight with Teruto Ishihara was terrible. His fight with Ryan Hall was one of the worst fights you've ever seen. And his fight with Fernando Bruno was absolutely awful. Prior to that, he actually lost a decision to Alexander Yakovlev, who easily out-wrestled him, the key here, because people think Nick Lentz can't. And he looked terrible. All these fights, he's looked terrible. This is no different. The other thing, too, is that he fought Bruno, Ryan Hall, and Teruto Ishihara all at 145 pounds. Now he's coming back up to 155 because can't really cut that weight. Not good for him.
It may help his chin.
I don't know, because his chin, he wasn't really getting knocked out at 45. He beat Bruno by decision. He didn't lose to... Ryan Hall outstruck him.
Fair enough.
But it was a weird-ass game plan. And then Teruto Ishihara never got a chance to put hands on him. But those are all 45ers. Now you got a 55. Nick Lentz is not known for his punching power. But Nick Lentz actually struggles to make 55. Isn't the smallest guy. And wings punches. And winging a shot is really all you need. You don't got to go out there and, I got to land on Gray right on the button. It's like, just hit him. Just go out there and hit him.
Well, Nick Lentz used to fight at 145, and then
his body
shut down, and he kind of looks like a milk bag at 155.
The thing with Gray, especially, you know, there's ways to get knocked out. Not a proper way to get knocked out, obviously. I just mean sometimes you shell up and you're getting hit and the ref stops it. Sometimes, bing, Chuck Liddell, it's just that one shot just puts you down. Gray Maynard's case, it's like he would look lost. His fight with Nate Diaz in particular and Ross Pearson, he just shells, he doesn't know where he's at. He just stops, his hands are down, and he just gets bombed on until he can't take it anymore. Nick Lentz has got a massive chip on his shoulder. First of all, you know, being such a Trump supporter, I'm sure he takes a lot of flack. He's gotta put up or shut up. But he just always feels disrespected. You know, ATT's disrespected me. UFC's disrespected me. My nutritional coach, BJ Pence disrespected me. Mike Dolce's disrespected me. There's always something with Nick Lentz. Someone's always disrespecting Nick Lentz. But he's got a chip on his shoulder. And that's really all you need, I think, at this point is to beat Gray Maynard. Is be a good enough wrestler to stuff the takedown and keep this fight standing. The $9,000, though. Man, Nick Lentz just he could submit a guy, but it's hard to submit Gray Maynard. And he's not exactly known for his punching power. I think he'll go out there and wing those shots, and I think one of those shots could put Gray Maynard down. I am picking Nick Lentz. But on a card full of, you know, big monetary people here, you know,
and high volume, high intensity fights.
High intensity, potential for the knockout. It's that, you know, you got Nick Lentz, Gray Maynard. It's a grinder. It's an old school timey grinder versus an old school timey power grinder. They're both kind of mirror images of each other. The one thing is that one guy can't take a punch, and the guy actually can.
And nobody will be shocked to see this go 3 rounds and for the winner to get like 70 points and for it to be that type of fight. And that's not winning you on this card. You're not winning even single entries and stuff. Like you're not winning.
But again, the last thing I say, not to put too much info out there, but if you're gonna play multiple lineups, right? Nick Lentz is probably not going to be high owned.
Yeah.
A, it's Nick Lentz, and B, he is expensive. All these other plays will get owned. Nick Lentz could knock out Gray Maynard. Why? Because he's fighting Gray Maynard. That's
Fair
it.
enough.
You know, that's it. We used to make the joke like, oh, you know, what if Bruce Buffer gets too excited and then flashes that cue card real fast and that gust of wind hits him right in the chin and he folds down. Yeah, we used to make those jokes about guys like Gray Maynard.
Yeah.
And he hasn't fought in a couple years, again. Hasn't looked good. The last time you watched a Gray Maynard fight and said, damn, that guy looked good, was when he fought Kenny Florian. That was a little over 8 years ago.
Absolutely. We got Ryan LaFlare taking on Tony Martin. Ryan LaFlare is 8,800. Tony Martin is 7,400. LaFlare is not really the kind of guy that you really want to. He's not a DraftKings kind of guy.
No, he's a decision machine.
He's a decision machine. Sean Shelby even went on record saying that Ryan LaFlare is the most boring fighter on the UFC roster, which is kind of harsh coming from the UFC.
And I strongly disagree with that.
Which is a pretty harsh statement, if we're being completely honest. So, Tony Martin's a guy who's kind of improved. I don't really have a great feel for this fight, if I'm being completely honest. If it's a DraftKings gun to my head, I have to roster one of these guys. Probably Tony Martin, because 8,800, Ryan LaFlare. It's just like I'm paying up for Dominic Reyes, that extra 100. I'll find the extra 100 somewhere to do that type of thing. But I do think that Ryan LaFlare is the more technical fighter, and the guy's just a winner, right? It's like unless you have like super power, like the uppercut from hell that Cowboy Oliveira landed on him. I don't know if Tony Martin really has that in his arsenal. And yeah, it's kind of one of those fights. It's probably gonna it's a LaFlare fight. It'll probably be relatively close to contested. LaFlare just has a knack for knowing where he is in a fight and scraping by and getting through. This is probably a fight that I will avoid for the most part, though.
Yeah, Ryan LaFlare is a prime example of why you could look so good on the regional scene, and then you come to the UFC and it's like just the different level of competition. He doesn't look at it plays. He's a G. I really like Ryan LaFlare. It's just he finished every single one of his opponents, most of them in the first round, before coming to the UFC. He has 7 wins in the UFC, every single one by decision. So the $8,800, do you want to pay that? Or sorry, yeah, $8,800 on Ryan LaFlare? Do you want to pay that on Ryan LaFlare?
No.
Nah, you really don't. Ryan LaFlare signed to the UFC, and one of the big things on him coming in was that he's just perennially injured. Like, great athlete. A lot of people think he wrestled collegiately, but I think he played lacrosse at Hofstra. But a good athlete, a guy that didn't come necessarily from a wrestling base, but that's what he does now. He's a good wrestler. He's competent, hard to take down, got a good gas tank, striking, ever improving. He spent a lot of time with the Black Zillions at the time. He's also spent a lot of time at Belmore Kickboxing Academy in New York. Spend a lot of time training with the guys at Nick Cotone. Like, he's in a good spot. He's a good athlete. He's a little bit older, but he's versatile, man. He can do it all for you. The couple times that he's lost, I don't want to say brain fart moments, but he's actually had a bad rap, man. Think about his UFC career, right? He lost his first fight, was against Damian Maia, was headlining a card in Brazil, 5 rounds. You talk about if Damian Maia gets you down. Damian Maia had him down. Damian Maia was on top of him for 20 minutes. And in the 5th round, Damian Maia was cowering away because Ryan LaFlare was coming on strong trying to put him away. But then injuries get to him. He beats Mike Pierce, he beats Ron Carnero, the Alex Oliveira fight. He won the 1st round. But he got caught by that sneaky uppercut by a really strong guy, and he gets knocked out. The only 2 losses on his professional career are a 5-round main event loss to Damian Maia, in which he was in all the worst positions imaginable and did not get submitted, in a fight where he fought a top 15 guy who he won the 1st round and happened to get caught. Why would this guy get a bad rap? Just because, as guys like Sean Shelby say, he's really boring. He's like a John Fitch. John Fitch is more committed to the grappling than Ryan LaFlare is. He's not like a John Fitch. But he's just got that style where it's like he just grinds guys down. Santiago Ponzinibbio, exciting striker. Ryan LaFlare grinds him down. Alex Garcia's last fight, big power puncher. Just grinds him down. That's what he does. He finds ways to beat these guys. And the thing with Tony Martin is Tony Martin seems really talented, but he's not making the strides that people really want to see from him. He's got the frame, dude. He's really long, but he's really long at 155 pounds. At 170 pounds, not quite as long. The power, oh geez, he's got that ranginess. The power's not quite there. Keita Nakamura took all of this guy's best shots. And how you can beat Tony Martin is push a pace, grind him, pin him up against the cage, score some takedowns. And those are all things that LaFlare can do. They're just all things that I don't think $8,800 worth of LaFlare is going to be worth it. So I got Ryan LaFlare to win this fight. But I don't like the price tag. And, you know, this is a close fight. I'm sure if you're listening to this point, you either don't like the price tag in a lot of these fights, or they're past fights. They're really close fights. But there's enough value on here that you could construct a very solid team. You're going to need a couple, you know, value plays here and there, no doubt about it. And for me personally, I don't love HOLZMAN, but I think that UCR, FORMIGA, and Jose QUINONEZ, great value plays for my money's worth. And that's kind of the direction I'm going myself.
It's going to be a fun night, and it's all coming together. It's all coming together.
I got to know.
I've been talking a lot of smack for a lot of years here, Cody, and I know it's not going to end. It's not going to end after this fight, because if Khabib beats Conor, they're going to say, well, he hasn't beaten Ferguson. Ferguson didn't lose that belt. Ferguson should be the champion. So it's going to go on and on. I've been fighting this fight for a long time. But it's good to see everything coming together finally.
Yeah, you know what? It's very nice to see. The one thing that I've really got to ask you.
What's that?
My worry for you. Is that thing machine washable? Because you gonna be sweating on Saturday. And I don't want you carrying this greasy sweat ball of hair. It's probably sweaty right now.
I'm sweating under these lights, if I'm being completely honest.
So you're saying
do you want to wear the hat?
You're saying McGregor
Would you like to wear the hat?
McGregor got in your head?
he got to me, yeah.
Now I feel like Joe Rogan when I get it passed off.
It looks good. Looks good on you.
Okay, well.
It suits you. Yeah, let's be honest. Like, this is awesome. Everyone who's an MMA fan is excited. I may come off as a Conor McGregor hater, but it's good to have the guy back. He's entertaining. He gets other people excited. Mayo behind the board there is like actually going to a friend's place to watch the fights. Mayo doesn't really watch all
that's why I
much
said,
MMA
dude,
anymore. Like, he's fired up for this fight. Everyone's fired up for this fight.
Well, that's why I said, man, it's good for the sport. It's good for the sport that, I don't want to say casuals get back into it, but you honestly, at the end of the day, you need a Brock Lesnar every now and again. You need a Ronda Rousey. You need a Conor McGregor. Ronda Rousey was an actual fighter, an actual athlete. It was good that she could draw. Conor's an actual fighter. He's an actual athlete. Talks a great game, but he can back it up at the end of the day. We're excited to see it. But for anybody that says you're a McGregor hater, the early episodes of what was Bookie Beatdown, you were so fucking on him, right? Everyone might laugh, always wearing the Khabib hat.
I dressed up like Conor McGregor for one of our episodes.
You used to wear a McGregor dethrone hat with the McGregor shades on, like an Irish flag as a cape, and a McGregor dethrone. This is back when Reebok wasn't even around. It was dethroned.
I don't hate him. I just think his reckoning has come.
It's just crazy that if there's anybody that I would want to hear their opinion on how this fight's going to go, it's not the guy that loves Khabib so blindly that he hates Conor. You loved Conor, and you love Khabib. And your love for Khabib has caused you to hate Conor. That's a lot of love, dude. That's intense. That's big time.
If he managed to find, I just don't see it. I just don't see how he loses this fight. I see Conor has the left hand. He's got the power, but I think we're gonna get it done. I feel the same like GSP versus Bisping, where I was sat here across the table from you and guaranteed a GSP win. I feel similar this time around.
All right, well, let's bet a bottle of Conor's Irish whiskey.
I would never drink that backwoods sludge.
Oh yeah, that's right. You're actually Irish.
That
well, so is he. What am I saying?
That whiskey looks like trash. In any review I've already seen, looks like trash. But brilliant.
All Khabib fans reviewing it.
Brilliant to be able to just promote that whiskey on a UFC stage, get Dana White to drink a shot of whiskey during a press conference that's getting aired all over the world. Like, the guy's a G when it comes to promoting and his brand, building his brand. Like, there's nobody better. And there has never been anybody this great at doing it. Maybe you could say like Muhammad Ali way back in the day, but this is our Muhammad Ali these days in terms of fight promotion.
You know what? It's so funny you brought that up. I was thinking about it the other day. I don't know why it came up, but I'm thinking to myself, if Muhammad Ali was back in today's day and age, and Mike Tyson was back in today's day and age, those guys could win UFC fights. No doubt about it. Mike Tyson would blow out Derek Lewis. No doubt. Mike Tyson would smoke Francis Ngannou. Mike Tyson would beat up a lot of those guys. But eventually he would have to fight Stipe, or he would have to fight Derek or Kerr's blades, or he'd have to fight anybody with an inclination of a takedown game, and they would get him. Muhammad Ali, he would smoke idiots like Mark Godbeer and Justin Ledet just based on his jab and his footwork. He'd be less effective than Mike Tyson, no doubt about it. He'd be less effective, but he could beat some of these middling heavyweights that are god awful. But eventually, some grappler is going to take you down. Conor McGregor may be a once in a generational athlete. The guy has certainly done spectacular feats. But you know what I mean? Eventually he's going to run into that grappler, and it is what it is.
Who's going to be able to take that? He's going to get... Khabib's going to get hit. Like, there's no doubt, and like he's gonna get hit. You're gonna have to get hit to take to get into that range, right?
You know how it goes. This is for me personally.
But once he gets a hold, once he gets a lock, it's a different world down there.
Conor could be the best in the world, and he might be able to beat Tony Ferguson, and he might be able to beat Jose Aldo and all these different guys. He might be able to beat Max Holloway in a rematch at 155 pounds. But eventually, the Khabibs of the world are gonna get you. And sorry to break your heart, but Khabib will be the champ for a bit. But eventually, Gregor Gillespie will stuff the takedown and be better. And then unfortunately for Gregor Gillespie, Aaron Pico will stuff his takedowns and be better than him standing. And it's just an evolution. Someone's always going to be your kryptonite.
Sure.
And I kind of feel like this might be McGregor's kryptonite. But all the same, we need him for the sport. It's good for the sport. I'm very excited. You talk about Pat's going to a party. I'm sure you're going to a party. I'm hosting a party. We're all going to parties. This is big. So just excited to be able to relish the moment for it. We always talk about these shit cards. This is not a shit card. This is a fun card, and it's got a crown jewel at the top.
Just a final reminder, remember, give the show a like. Is Conor in Khabib's head? Give your DK handle, all that good stuff. You'll be in the draw to get some money.
Is Conor...
Conor's going to win in 98 seconds.
Pat, hot take, 98 seconds, says Pat.
I think the question should have been, is Conor inside of Paul's head? To which the answer is most definitely yes.
It is definitely not. Yeah, he is definitely not in my head, I'm telling you.
No, Conor,
it's happening.
No.
I see it so clearly.
No, Conor, no.
I see it so clearly. It's gonna be a great night.
Man, he said he was gonna put his balls on Khabib's chin. You actually just gonna act like that ain't gonna happen after he said it?
I'd like to see him try. Anyway, that wraps it up for us. Want to thank Pat Mayo for all his hard work behind the board there. Want to thank Cody Saftic for breaking down the fights with me. For both of those guys, I'm Paul Shaughnessy saying goodbye and good luck.
Mayo experience! Experience!